Hello friends, it's Allison and I'm excited to be back on the Alex Syberia Designs YouTube channel. Today I'm going to be making a pretty simple card, but there's a few techniques I wanted to share with you. So here is the card that we'll be making today. And the two main products that we'll be using are the Foxtrot Alphabet Die Set and the Jingle Bell Joy set. I will also be using the small bow from the Pretty Bows set. And finally, I will be using the Elegant Stripes hot foil plate. So we're going to get started with the letters. And I love the Foxtrot set. I think they're really whimsical looking, which is why I decided to make the bell for the G. And you'll see I cut 3 of each letter, and I've cut 2 of the top pieces of the bell and 1 of the bottom piece. And I'm going to stack all of these. So I wanted dimension on my card, which is why I cut 3 of each. So to do this, I'm just using my smallest grip mat from Waffle Flower. And I want to assemble these letters as quickly as possible. So this is the method that I've been using lately. I'm going to place 2 of the letters on my grip mat, and these are so delicate and small, you'll see they're kind of moving as soon as the glue bottle touches them. So there is a little bit of movement because there's just very little paper to grip to the grip mat. But once I start gluing on that 3rd letter, it really does stay in place. So now that I've glued one onto one of them, now I can glue all 3 together. So again, I'm going to put glue on 2 of them, and then I'll take the 3rd letter, put it on one of them, and then place those 2 on top of the 3rd. And I just think this is the fastest way to do it, but I know everybody has their way. For the bell, I'm just gluing on the little white piece that I've cut. That's the part that makes the noise when the bell rings. And then I'll just glue the other 2 parts of the bell. There's actually 2 pieces for the top of the bell that I'll glue on. So again, I just wanted to show you this method because I think a lot of people find it daunting to, glue all of these layers together. And it really doesn't have to be that daunting as long as you come up with kind of a assembly line method. Then it's not that hard. So now I have finished gluing all of my letters together as well as the bell, and we can move on. So for the hot foil plate, I'm not going to hot foil with it. I'm actually going to emboss with it. So I have a piece of green cardstock, and I'm going to follow the directions kind of. So it's telling me to put the platform base on there, but I'm going to put a shim. The shim is a lot thinner than the platform top or whatever it's called. I'm using the universal system from Spellbinders. And now I'm placing the plate with the piece of paper on top. Now normally for embossing, I spray my paper. This would be like for a 3D embossing folder or for this if I had followed the directions. But I'm using the shim because I don't want, and here's the embossing pad and then the adapter plate that you're supposed to put on top. So I'm going to put those on top. But I use that thinner shim plate because I just want a very subtle texture. So that's why I kind of didn't follow the directions. And you just run it through, and it ran through really easily because again, I used a really thin shim. So here I'm going to show you the difference. Here's just a plain piece of cardstock, and here's what I just embossed. It's hard to see, but you'll see it later. It's just a very subtle texture. And then I will show you what you get when you actually follow the instructions. If you use that actual platform top that the instructions tell you to, you'll see that you get really more of an embossed look, an embossed result. So big difference, but again, I wanted this very subtle texture. So what I've done is I've attached it to a card base, and now I've attached that smaller plain green piece of cardstock into the middle, and I put a couple white pieces of paper behind that just to lift it off of that embossed background a little bit. And now I am going to just kind of arrange my letters and come up with you know, how I want my card design to look. So I'm just going to kind of play around with it until I'm happy with it. And then this is where I decided that it kind of needed something more. So this is when I decided to bring in one of the small bows. So you'll see me kind of, and then also I have the sentiment, and I think this is called the Christmas Sentiments. This was from the recent release, so I had stamped that and used the matching die to cut it out. So here's where I decided to add a bow. Now I was playing around with red, but you'll see ultimately I don't use red. So here's another method that I wanted to show you. I'm using press and seal, and you'll see that I've lined up the Jingle word with the help of my craft mat. So I've used the lines on the craft mat to line everything up, and then I'm going to use the press and seal and try to press it down really quickly before anything can move. Now the J will move a little bit because I didn't press it down enough. So I can just kind of, usually I'll flip it over and I can adjust the letters, but here I was easily able to just adjust it before even flipping everything over. But once everything is, it grips to that press and seal wrap. And then I can flip it over and I can glue all the letters. And that way, when I flip it back over and glue it to the paper, I know that everything is straight. And it saves a lot of time and frustration. So now that I have glue, I can just flip it over and place it on the paper. And because the press and seal is see-through, I can, see where I'm placing it. And before I really press down, I'm going to use my T-square ruler just to make sure it's on there straight. And then again, before it's really pressed down there and glued for good, I'm going to peel off the wrap, because then I can just make some final adjustments if I need to. And so that's what I'm doing here. I'm just making sure everything's straight, both horizontally and vertically. And now I can move on to the second word. And so for this, I don't know why I was trying to center it between the I and the L of Jingle, but somehow I got distracted, and that's where I was centering things. So you'll notice, or maybe you won't notice, maybe only I notice these things. It was not centered, on that piece of green cardstock, the bells word. So I will fix this later, but again, it would have been easy for me to center it originally. I don't know. I got distracted by the I and the L. And so now we're going to just attach everything else. So here is the sentiment. And I think I had placed one piece of cardstock behind that. So this is kind of doubled up just to provide a little bit of dimension. And again, this is from the Christmas Sentiments. And I think this is where I really noticed that things were off center, because I had to center the sentiment under the bells, but I noticed that it was not centered on the actual card. So for the bows, I decided not to go with the red. At the time, I thought it was kind of too distracting for the words, that you wouldn't really see the word. So I made a yellow and green bow, and I glued the green one on top. So you can kind of see the yellow underneath. But again, I wanted a bow. I just didn't want to make it hard to read the word. All right, so now this card is looking like it's done. But again, the centering issue was kind of bothering me, and there was just something else about the card that was looking a little flat. So I'm going to perform a little surgery. I'm just taking a blade and I'm carefully sliding it under that center panel. And it's okay if there's a little bit of damage to the base underneath, because you're not going to see that. And, you know, again, I'm just being as careful as I can and, you know, trying to see if it will pop off. And I'll just continue going around the edge until I can get it off. So once I get it off, I'm going to trim the left edge of this panel. I'm going to leave everything in place, but I'm just going to trim that left edge and a little bit off the bottom so that the dimensions are still, you know, corresponding to my A2 base. So I've done that off camera. You'll see now everything looks more centered. And now I've cut a piece of white cardstock to be like the original size of what that green panel was. And I will place this over the panel because I need to cover, you know, the damage that I did to the base. So by doing this also, I think it's making that center panel pop quite a bit more, because originally I was going for a tone on tone look, but I think it was kind of, I don't know, looking a little flat. So by having this white base underneath, I think it really makes everything pop better. And so now I'm just a lot happier with how things look, and it was easy to fix. So there we go. Now I am going to show you the final card, and here it is. But I'm also going to show you a close-up so you can see that the texture on that bottom panel, you really can see it in person. It's just a lot more subtle than a fully embossed panel would have been. So that's it for me today. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye.